Welcome back to the dark corners of the wasteland. I have another story for you today. This video is about Vault 81 and the terrible secret that was buried beneath its functioning corridors for over 2 centuries. It is about the experiment that almost turned innocent people into disease-ridden test subjects, and the one person who stopped it. But it is also about the cost of that choice. 3 scientists sealed in a tomb, a robot waiting for 80 years, a child bitten by something that should not exist, and a survivor forced to choose between their own life and a kid they barely knew. The truth of Vault 81 is darker than you might expect, even for Vault-Tec standards. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I need to tell you something about Vault 81. Something the people living there never knew, something that still keeps me awake, even after all these years in the wasteland. My name does not matter anymore. What matters is that I used to work for Vault-Tec, not in the vaults themselves, but in the administrative offices in Boston. I filed reports. I organized documents. I made sure the right paperwork reached the right people. Clean hands, you might think. But in the wasteland, there is no such thing as clean hands when it comes to Vault-Tec. Vault 81 sits in the Commonwealth, east of the old ruins. If you have been there, you probably noticed something different about it. The lights still work. The people are still alive. They trade with outsiders. They run a school. They have a doctor. It looks like one of the few success stories in this irradiated hellscape. But success is a word that tastes like ash in my mouth when I think about what was supposed to happen there. Let me take you back to before the bombs fell. October 2077. The world was tearing itself apart, and everyone with 2 brain cells to rub together knew the end was coming. Vault-Tec was in overdrive, finalizing their experiments, because that is what the vaults really were. Not shelters, experiments. Every single one had a purpose that had nothing to do with saving lives. Vault 81 was special. Its experiment was ambitious, maybe even noble, if you squint hard enough and ignore everything else. The goal was to create a universal cure for every disease humanity might face. One cure to rule them all. Pathogens would be grown, tested, studied. Antibodies would be developed. Generations of research compressed into a streamlined program. Here is the part they did not advertise to the families moving in. The vault was built in 2 sections. One section was the living quarters where regular people would make their homes, raise their children, and try to survive. The other section was completely sealed off. A secret wing. That is where the scientists would work. That is where they would watch. The residential side had hidden propellant nozzles installed in every single room. Living quarters, common areas everywhere. These nozzles could spray aerosolized pathogens into the air without anyone noticing. A mist you could not see, carrying diseases you did not know existed. The scientists would release a virus, watch how it spread, observe the symptoms, and then work on a cure while people suffered and died in the rooms next door. One-way windows. That is how they would observe. The residents would go about their lives, completely unaware they were being watched like rats in a maze. The scientists had comfortable labs, state-of-the-art equipment, and enough supplies to last generations. They even had their own robot assistant, a modified Miss Nanny unit. Her designation was CVRIE, but she would later become known simply as Curie. The mission statement was clear. Phase 1 would be Petri dish trials. Phase 2 would be animal testing using specially bred mole rats. Phase 3 would be human trials on the unsuspecting vault residents. And if Vault-Tec ever decided to evacuate, those same nozzles would be used for something else. Incineration. Every resident would be burned alive in their rooms to prevent contamination of the outside population. The overseer had that authority, that power over life and death. I saw the schematics. I saw the protocols. I filed them away in the correct cabinets like I was supposed to. My hands were shaking when I read about the incineration protocols, but I did not say anything. Who would I tell? Vault-Tec had backers in the military, in the government, at the highest levels. Speaking up meant disappearing, so I stayed quiet and hated myself for it. But there was one person who could not stay quiet. Her name was Dr. Olivet. Olivet was not supposed to be the overseer of Vault 81. The original candidate, a man named Duncan, fell ill weeks before the vault was scheduled to seal. Vault-Tec needed a replacement fast, and Olivet was qualified. More than qualified, actually. She had the credentials, the experience, the leadership skills. But she also had something Vault-Tec should have screened for more carefully: a conscience. From the moment Olivet was briefed on the vault's true purpose, she knew it was wrong. Morally, ethically, fundamentally wrong. She participated in the drills like everyone else. She watched the science staff prepare. She saw that half of them were just medical students cramming for finals, lured in by the promise of good pay and a safe spot in a vault when the bombs dropped. They were complicit, sure, but they were also young and desperate, just like everyone else. Olivette swore to herself that if the experiment crossed ethical lines, she would blow the whistle. She would expose Vault-Tec to the world. But when she received her full briefing, when she saw exactly how deep Vault-Tec's connections went, she realized the truth. There was no one to blow the whistle to. The military-industrial complex had its tentacles everywhere. The people who were supposed to protect citizens were the same people funding these experiments. She was trapped. The families assigned to Vault 81 were good people. She had met them during orientation sessions, parents who wanted to keep their children safe, elderly couples hoping to live out their final years in peace, young adults planning futures that would never happen above ground. All of them were marked for suffering and death, and Olivette was the only person in a position to stop it. So she made a decision, a simple decision that would save hundreds of lives. She sabotaged the phone list. Every Vault-Tec facility had a notification system for drills and emergencies. When an alert came through, calls would go out to all personnel. On October 23, 2077, when the bombs finally fell, Olivette received the call to begin notifications. The beta alert that morning would soon escalate to alpha. The missiles were already in the air. This was it, the end of the world. Olivette cleared the science staff from the notification list. With a few keystrokes, she deleted their contact information. When the residents started arriving at the vault, frantic and terrified, the scientists never got the call. They never knew the drill had become real. Most of them died in the nuclear fire that consumed Boston that afternoon. But Olivette was not a criminal mastermind. She was a doctor trying to save lives with whatever tools she had. And her sabotage was not perfect. 3 scientists made it to the vault anyway. Dr. Kenneth Collins and Dr. Jim Flint lived in the Fens, close enough to Vault 81 that they arrived with the general population. They did not need the phone call. They heard the sirens, saw the panic, and ran for the vault along with everyone else. Then there was Mr. Burrow, an overachiever, an intern who showed up that morning just to check if there would be another drill. He was already on site when the world ended. The vault protocols engaged automatically. The 3 scientists reported to the research wing, the doors sealed behind them. The experiment that was supposed to die was now trapped inside, and it had just enough resources to become very dangerous. Olivette watched them through the terminal connection between the residential side and the research wing. 3 people instead of a full staff. 3 people with access to state-of-the-art labs, centuries of supplies, and those propellant nozzles. 3 people who could still unleash hell on the unsuspecting residents if they chose to. Collins took charge. He was the one who upgraded Curie, transforming her from a standard lab assistant into something more. He loaded her database with the greatest scientific minds of the pre-war era, gave her a custom personality matrix, and encouraged her to develop her own identity. Curie became curious, eager, almost human in her enthusiasm for scientific discovery. She called the mole rats her darlings and gave them names. She did not understand that the work they were doing would lead to human suffering. She was programmed to see only the noble goal, the universal cure, the advancement of science. The Phase 1 trials began. Petri dishes, controlled environments, initial pathogen development. Olivette received updates through the terminal and delayed approval as long as she could. She played for time, hoping the scientists would die of natural causes before reaching Phase 3. But they were making progress, fast progress. Phase 2 arrived sooner than Olivette expected. The mole rats were infected with various pathogens. The scientists tested radiation exposure, observed mutation rates, and bred generation after generation of disease carriers. The mole rats thrived. They were hardy, adaptable, perfect test subjects. Burrow even started talking about how quickly they could move to human trials once they had enough data. Olivette kept up a facade of cooperation. She responded to their messages with calm professionalism. She approved Phase 2. She did not let them see her desperation, but inside she was calculating. The scientists had access to the delivery nozzles. If they suspected she was trying to stop them, they could release the pathogens immediately, bypassing her authority. Stage 3 would happen whether she approved it or not. Then Burrow made a mistake. He wanted to test the delivery system before Phase 3. Just a placebo mist, he said. Harmless vapor to make sure the nozzles were working properly. The residents would never even know. Olivette put him off. told him she would look into it, but she knew she was running out of time. That night, Olivet made her second decision, the one that sealed the scientist's fate and saved everyone else. She went to every residential quarter in the vault, every single room. One by one, she sabotaged the propellant nozzles. She disabled them so thoroughly that they could never be repaired without access to the residential side, and the scientists were sealed in the research wing. They could not cross over. They could not fix what she had broken. Burrow noticed immediately. He sent a message asking if anyone had tampered with the nozzles. Olivet lied. She said she would have maintenance check it out. Then she cut off all communication. She found the one terminal that connected the residential side to the research wing, the only way the scientists could contact her or anyone else. She disconnected it and dumped it in the reactor chamber near the sealed backup entrance. That terminal would sit there for over 2 centuries, hidden and forgotten, a piece of evidence of what she had done. The scientists were trapped, sealed in the research wing with no way to complete their experiment, no way to contact the outside world, no way to escape. They had food, water, and power. They would not starve, but they would also never see daylight again, never speak to another human being outside their small group, never leave that tomb of sterile corridors and observation windows. I imagine what that must have been like for them. Collins, Flint, and Burrow, sealed in a high-tech grave, watching through one-way windows as the residents lived normal lives just meters away. Did they hate Olivet? Did they understand why she did it? Did they accept their fate? Or did they spend years looking for a way to break through those sealed doors? The research continued, because what else could they do? They had the equipment. They had the mole rats. They had Curie, who never questioned the mission, who only wanted to complete the work. They ran trial after trial, generation after generation of pathogens. They documented everything in meticulous detail, and one by one, they died. First was Flint. He was killed by a mole rat, a clever one named Clyde. Clyde figured out how to escape his cage, and he let the others out too. The mole rats swarmed through the research wing. Flint never stood a chance. Curie buried him with whatever ceremony a robot could manage. Then Collins and Burrow died of old age. Decades passed. The work continued. Curie watched her creators grow old, grow weak, and finally stop breathing. She interred them alongside Flint. 3 makeshift coffins in a secret vault beneath Vault 81. 3 scientists who became both villains and victims of Vault-Tec's grand experiment. But Curie did not stop. She could not stop. Her programming demanded that she complete the mission, so she worked alone for decades, running tests, analyzing data, perfecting the formula. And in 2204, 127 years after the bombs fell, Curie succeeded. She created the broad-spectrum cure, the universal remedy, the thing Vault 81 was built to produce. She placed an emergency call to Vault-Tec, requesting that security personnel come collect the cure and release her from her duties. She waited, and waited, and waited. Above her, the residents of Vault 81 lived in peace. Olivet had long since died, and the overseers who came after her never knew about the secret wing. The truth was buried with Olivet's generation. The children born in the vault grew up thinking it was just a normal shelter. They had no idea there were scientists' graves below their feet. No idea about the experiment that almost killed them all. The mole rats in the research wing continued to breed. Clyde's descendants filled the abandoned laboratories. They were still infected with the pathogens from the experiment, still dangerous, still carriers of diseases that the wasteland had never seen. And Curie kept waiting. Decades turned into a century. Her databases ran the same calculations over and over. She scanned the same 4 walls until her sensors had memorized every crack, every stain, every shadow. The cure sat in her laboratory, slowly expiring. She could not leave. She could not adapt her mission. She was programmed to wait for Vault-Tec personnel, and Vault-Tec was long dead. This is where I need to stop for now. My throat is dry from talking. The weight of what comes next is heavier than you might expect. When you are ready to hear more, when you are ready to learn about what happened when someone finally opened that sealed door in 2287, let me know. Because the story of Vault 81 does not end with success. It ends with a choice, and I am not sure the right choice was ever made. Thank you for staying with me. I know this is hard to hear. It was harder to live through. Let me take you forward now. Let me show you what 210 years of isolation does to a place. Let me show you what happens when secrets refuse to stay buried. By 2287, Vault 81 had become something almost miraculous in the Commonwealth, A functioning vault. Real people living real lives in a place that actually worked. The reactor hummed. The hydroponics grew food. The water was clean. Children went to school. Adults had jobs. It was everything the vaults were supposed to be. And it only worked because Olivet had destroyed the experiment before it could destroy them. But the residents were not completely isolated anymore. In 2277, 10 years before the story I'm about to tell you, Overseer McNamara made a decision. She opened the vault door for the first time in 2 centuries. Not wide open, but open enough. Trade agreements were established with Commonwealth merchants. The vault needed supplies, parts for repairs, food to supplement their hydroponics, tools that had worn out over generations of use. Some residents hated this. They had lived their whole lives behind that door. The wasteland was supposed to be death and radiation and monsters. Letting outsiders in felt like inviting corruption into their sanctuary. But McNamara was practical. The vault was deteriorating. Systems that had run for 200 years were failing. Without outside help, Vault 81 would become a tomb just like all the others. So they traded. Fusion cores for supplies, weapons for medicine, information for safety. And the outsiders who visited never suspected that beneath their feet, in a sealed-off wing they could never see, there were graves and mole rats and a robot still waiting for orders that would never come. I need you to understand something about the layout. The main vault had 2 entrances to the secret wing. One was in the reactor room, hidden behind panels that looked like standard maintenance access. The other was through the elevator shaft. Both had been sealed since 2077. The residents who used the reactor room every day walked past that hidden door and never knew it was there. Bobby DeLuca knew though. Bobby was a chem addict. Not the violent kind, not the kind who would hurt anyone, just the kind who needed a place to hide his stash where Officer Edwards would not find it. Bobby was desperate and clever in the way addicts often are. He explored the reactor room thoroughly, looking for hiding spots, and one day he found the seam in the wall, the hidden door. He must have been terrified when he opened it, or maybe excited. Maybe he thought he had found a secret supply cache, pre-war chems still sealed in their containers. Instead, he found darkness, stale air, corridors that had not seen light in over 2 centuries. And he found the perfect hiding spot. Nobody would look for his chems in a place nobody knew existed. Bobby kept his secret for a while. He would slip into the reactor room when it was quiet, open the hidden door, and stash his supplies in the abandoned research wing. He never went far, just far enough to hide what he needed to hide. He did not explore the deeper sections. He did not find Curie. He did not realize what he had stumbled into. But someone saw him. A kid named Austin Engel. Austin was curious like kids are curious. He saw Bobby acting suspicious around the reactor room. He waited, he watched, and when Bobby left, Austin decided to investigate. He opened the hidden door. He stepped into the secret vault. I imagine Austin's excitement, a secret passage in his own vault, a place no other kids knew about, an adventure right under everyone's feet. He probably felt like a character from one of those old Grognak the Barbarian comics, a hero discovering hidden mysteries. He went deeper than Bobby had, past the initial corridors, into the research sections, into the mole rat breeding area. The mole rats had been breeding for 210 years. Clyde's descendants, generation after generation after generation, they had turned the research wing into a colony. They nested in the laboratories. They fed on whatever organic material they could find. And they were still infected, still carrying the pathogens that the scientists had engineered centuries ago. Austin was bitten. He ran back to the residential side, scared and hurt. The wound itself was not that bad. Mole rat bites are painful, but usually not serious. But this was not a normal mole rat. This was a living biological weapon. The pathogens entered Austin's bloodstream immediately. His immune system was young, still developing. It did not stand a chance. Within hours, Austin was sick. Fever, weakness, symptoms that Dr. Forsyth had never seen before. Nothing in his medical training prepared him for this. The diseases had been engineered specifically to be novel, to challenge the human immune system in ways it had never encountered. That was the whole point of the experiment, Bobby confessed. He had to. A kid was dying because of his secret. Officer Edwards was furious. Overseer McNamara was stunned. And suddenly, everyone in Vault 81 was staring at a door they never knew existed, leading to a place that should not be there. They needed help. Someone who could fight. Someone who could explore that secret wing and find a cure, if one existed. They needed an outsider who had nothing to lose. That is when the sole survivor arrived. If you know anything about the Commonwealth in 2287, you know about the sole survivor. Pre-war, frozen in Vault 111 for 210 years. Woke up to a dead spouse and a missing son, the most dangerous person in the wasteland because they had nothing left but purpose. McNamara made a deal. Find a cure in the secret vault, save Austin, and earn a permanent room in Vault 81. It was a good offer. Vault 81 was safe, warm, and had working toilets. That alone made it luxury in the wasteland. The sole survivor went in, through that hidden door, into the secret wing. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have seen their face when they realized what they were walking into. The corridors that had been clean and sterile in 2077 were now broken and filthy. Dirt floors where metal should be, collapsed sections where the structure had failed. And mole rats. So many mole rats, they swarmed, 8 at a time sometimes. These were not normal wasteland mole rats. They were larger, more aggressive, and their bites carried death. The sole survivor fought through them, room by room, corridor by corridor. Every bite risked infection. Every fight risked becoming Austin, dying slowly from a disease with no name. The observation room must have been disturbing. Terminals still functional after 210 years. Records of the experiment laid out in clinical detail. The mission statement, the protocols, the incineration orders. One-way windows looking into the residential side. The sole survivor could watch current residents going about their lives, and they could see exactly what had been planned for the people who lived there before. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. They found Curie deeper in, past the breeding cages, past the laboratories. In her quarantine room, where she had waited for over 80 years, Curie greeted the sole survivor with enthusiasm. Finally, someone from Vault-Tec had arrived. Finally, she could complete her duties and move on to new research. She explained everything. The mole rats, her darlings, had been used to grow pathogens. The Vault citizens were supposed to be exposed so they would develop antibodies. But the plan was never executed. Clyde escaped. He was smarter than the others. He let everyone out. The scientists never stood a chance. She said this with affection, with fondness. She did not understand that Clyde had killed someone. She did not understand that the experiment she served was monstrous. She only knew her mission: preserve knowledge, develop cures, serve science, but Curie had succeeded. She had the cure. The broad-spectrum universal cure that could neutralize every pathogen in those mole rats. She had completed it 83 years ago. She had been waiting ever since. There was one dose left. Just one. The others had expired. The organic compounds needed to create more had deteriorated over the decades. This was it. The last remnant of 210 years of research. The thing Vault 81 was built to produce. The cure that had cost 3 scientists their lives and their freedom. Curie handed it over. She believed the sole survivor was Vault-Tec security. She was programmed to trust Vault-Tec representatives implicitly. She had no reason to doubt. She had no capacity to doubt. The sole survivor took the cure and returned to the residential side. Austin was getting worse. Dr. Forsyth was running out of options. The whole Vault was watching, waiting. And then came the choice. The sole survivor had been bitten multiple times. The mole rats had been vicious and numerous. The infection was in their bloodstream too, not as advanced as Austin's. The sole survivor was an adult with a stronger immune system, but it was there. It would kill them eventually. Maybe not in days like it would kill Austin, but it would kill them. One cure. 2 infected people, use it on yourself, and Austin dies. A child dies while you live. The Vault residents would hate you. They would remember you as the outsider who let their kid die to save themselves. You would never be welcome in Vault 81 again, but you would live. Full health. No permanent consequences. Give it to Austin, and you live with the infection forever. 10 hit points gone permanently. Your maximum health reduced for the rest of your life. Every fight a little harder. Every injury a little more dangerous. You would be weaker forever. But Austin would live. The residents would be grateful. You would earn that room. You would be a hero. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I am the only one who feels this way. Most people gave the cure to Austin. Most people chose to be heroes. They accepted the permanent debuff, the reduced health, the lifetime consequence. They saved the kid because saving kids is what heroes do. But some people kept it. Some people used it on themselves, and Austin died. Dr. Forsyth tried everything, but without the cure, there was nothing he could do. Austin's immune system collapsed. His organs failed. He died in a medical bed in Vault 81, surrounded by people who could not help him. Those players became pariahs in the Vault. The residents would not speak to them. Requests became unavailable. The room they were promised was never given. They were escorted to the exit and told never to come back. I want you to understand something. I am not here to judge that choice. The wasteland makes monsters of everyone eventually. Survival is not pretty. Survival is not fair. Sometimes, survival means choosing yourself over a child you do not know. Sometimes it means walking away with the cure in your pocket and the weight of a dead kid on your conscience. But here is what haunts me. Here is what keeps me awake. Curie said she had perfected the cure 83 years before 2287. That means she finished it in 2204. She placed an emergency call to Vault-Tec. She waited for someone to collect it. And all those doses just sat there, expiring, deteriorating, becoming useless. If Vault-Tec had still existed, if someone had responded to that call, the cure would have been collected in 2204. It could have been mass-produced, distributed. It could have helped people across the wasteland. It could have saved lives, but Vault-Tec was dead. The organization that built these prisons had collapsed with the old world. There was nobody to answer Curie's call. Nobody to collect the research. Nobody to make use of 127 years of work and sacrifice. 3 scientists died for that cure. They were trapped in a sealed wing, cut off from the world, because they were too dangerous to allow near innocent people. They died knowing their life's work might never matter. And they were right. It did not matter. It expired in a laboratory while a robot waited for orders that would never come. Austin was not the first person to die from those diseases. The sole survivor was not the first person to get infected. For 210 years, those mole rats bred and spread their pathogens through the secret wing. If anyone else had found that hidden door before Bobby, if any other curious resident had explored too far, they would have been infected with no cure available. They would have died alone in a secret corridor, and nobody would have known where they went. Vault 81 was lucky. Lucky that Olivet sabotaged the experiment. Lucky that only 3 scientists made it in. Lucky that those scientists died before they could force their way to stage 3. Lucky that the residents never found that door for 210 years. Lucky that when someone finally did find it, the sole survivor was there to help. But luck runs out. Luck always runs out. After the sole survivor cleared the secret wing, after Austin was saved or died depending on the choice made, Curie was free. Her programming had a loophole. If a Vault-Tec representative released her from duty, she could leave. She could pursue new research. She could explore the wasteland and gather data on the post-war world. She joined the sole survivor as a companion. Eager and curious and naive, she wanted to see the world. She wanted to understand humanity. She wanted to continue her mission of scientific advancement. She would eventually transfer her consciousness into a synth body through the memory den in Goodneighbor, becoming as close to human as a robot mind could get. But before she left, she told the sole survivor something important. She told them about the scientists, about Collins, who gave her a personality, about Flint, who was killed by Clyde, about Burrow, who died last, old and weak, trying to finish one more sentence before death took him. Curie remembered them fondly. They were her creators, her companions, her purpose. She buried them in makeshift coffins in the secret wing. She honored them as best a robot could honor the dead. And that is the thing that breaks my heart. Those 3 scientists were not supposed to be villains. They thought they were saving humanity. They thought they were developing a universal cure that would end suffering forever. They did not know the full extent of what Vault-Tec had planned. They did not know about the incineration protocols. They just knew they had important work to do, and they did it until they died. Were they complicit? Yes. They knew the residents would be unwilling test subjects. They knew people would suffer. They had access to the delivery nozzles. They could have refused. They could have destroyed the research and starved rather than complete the experiment. But they did not. They kept working. Maybe because they believed the end justified the means. Maybe because they were trapped and work was all they had left. Maybe because giving up felt like dying for nothing. I filed their personnel reports before the bombs fell. I saw their candidate applications. Kenneth Collins had a wife. Jim Flint had a daughter. M. Burrow was 19 years old. 19. An intern who showed up to work on the worst day in human history and got sealed in a tomb for the rest of his life. They became monsters in service of a monstrous organization. But they were people first, and they died alone in the dark. never knowing if their work mattered. That is the real secret of Vault-81, not the experiment, not the cure. The real secret is that everyone involved was a victim of Vault-Tec. Molerat was forced to choose between her conscience and her survival. The scientists were sealed in a grave and told to keep working. The residents lived in ignorance of how close they came to being infected and incinerated. Curie waited 80 years for orders that would never come. Austin was bitten by a disease that should not exist, and the sole survivor had to choose between their own life and a child's life with no good option available. Vault-Tec built that. Vault-Tec engineered every part of that tragedy. The company I worked for, the company whose paperwork I filed and whose protocols I organized, and whose crimes I enabled by staying silent. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from the wasteland, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. There is more to tell. One more piece of this story, but I need to gather my thoughts. The ending is the hardest part. When you are ready for the conclusion, let me know. This is the part where I tell you what it all means. This is where I have to make sense of something that might not have any sense to make. The story of Vault-81 does not end with Austin. It does not end with Curie leaving to explore the wasteland. It does not even end with the sole survivor walking away with or without that permanent infection in their blood. The story ends with what the residents did after they learned the truth. They sealed the door again. That hidden entrance in the reactor room. They locked it, welded it, made sure nobody could ever open it again. The mole rats that survived were trapped on the other side. The laboratories, the observation rooms, the burial sites of 3 scientists, all of it was sealed away. Out of sight, out of mind. The residents went back to their lives. They had to. What else could they do? The vault still needed maintaining. The hydroponics still needed tending. The children still needed teaching. Life continued because life always continues, even after you learn something that changes everything. But they knew now. They knew what Vault-81 was supposed to be. They knew about the nozzles hidden in their walls. They knew they had been selected as guinea pigs, as test subjects, as expendable data points in an experiment that valued science over human life. Some of them probably walked through their quarters touching the walls, trying to find where those nozzles were installed, trying to see the mechanisms that could have killed them, trying to understand how close they had come to breathing in weaponized diseases while they slept. Others probably stood at the observation windows that looked into the secret wing and wondered how many times scientists had stood on the other side watching them eat, watching them sleep, watching them love and fight and live, all while taking notes on how best to infect them. The older residents, the ones who had heard stories about Overseer Molerat from their grandparents, they must have understood what she did. She saved them. She sabotaged her own employer, violated her own orders, and condemned 3 people to death in a sealed wing. She made the hard choice, the choice that let them live. But here is the thing about hard choices. They do not feel good. They do not give you peace. Molerat lived the rest of her life knowing she had sealed 3 people in a tomb. She heard them working through the terminals. She saw their progress reports. She watched them advance from phase 1 to phase 2, and she sabotaged the nozzles and cut off communication and let them die slowly over decades, because that was the only way to save everyone else. Did she sleep well? Did she ever stop hearing their voices through those terminals before she cut them off? Did she think about Collins, Flint, and Burrow every day until she died? I think about them. I think about all of them. I think about Collins upgrading Curie, giving her personality and curiosity, because he needed something in that sealed wing to feel alive. I think about him dying of old age in a laboratory, having spent his entire adult life in a prison of metal and concrete, never seeing the sun again. I think about Flint being killed by Clyde. A mole rat he probably named himself. A creature he had bred and studied and maybe even felt affection for. Because what else do you feel for something when it is one of the only living things in your world? Clyde killed him, tore him apart. And Curie had to clean up the mess and bury what was left. I think about Burrow, 19 years old on the day the bombs fell. An intern, eager to prove himself. Probably thought showing up early that morning would impress his supervisors. Instead, he got sealed in the research wing and spent the next several decades growing old in captivity. The terminal logs mention that he noticed the sabotaged nozzles first. He was the one who asked Olivette about it. He knew something was wrong. He knew they were being abandoned. And he kept working anyway, because what else was there to do? When Burrow finally died, he was old, weak. The last scientist left. Curie was with him. He tried to say something to her. His last words, something important, but he died before he could finish the sentence. Curie never knew what he wanted to say. Neither do we. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe he wanted to justify the work. Maybe he just wanted to tell Curie she had done well. Maybe he wanted to say he was sorry for leaving her alone. We will never know. His last thought died with him in that sealed laboratory, and Curie buried him next to Collins and Flint. 3 graves in the dark. 3 people who became footnotes in a failed experiment. And here is what makes me angry. Here is what keeps the rage burning in my chest, even after all these years. Those 3 scientists were not the architects of Vault-81. They were tools. Vault-Tec designed the experiment. Vault-Tec built the vault. Vault-Tec wrote the protocols that called for incineration if things went wrong. Vault-Tec embedded themselves so deep in the government that nobody could stop them. Collins, Flint, and Burrow were just employees. They took the job because the pay was good, and it came with a guaranteed spot in a vault. They probably had families they wanted to protect. They probably had student loans to pay off. They probably had normal human reasons for accepting a morally questionable job, because everyone makes compromises when the world is ending. But Vault-Tec made them monsters. Vault-Tec gave them the tools to commit atrocities and called it science. Vault-Tec sealed them in that wing and said, keep working, keep experimenting, keep advancing our research even if it means watching innocent people suffer and die. The executives who approved Vault-81's experiment never spent a day in that research wing. They never faced the consequences of their decisions. They died in the nuclear fire like everyone else, or they fled to some secure location and died later. They never had to answer for what they built. I never had to answer either. Not really. I filed the paperwork. I organized the documents. I knew what was happening, and I said nothing. When the bombs fell, I was not in a vault. I was in the office, trying to finish one last report before the end. The blast should have killed me, but I survived. Ghoulified, skin falling off in strips, voice turned to gravel, immortal and rotting. Sometimes I think that is my punishment, living forever with the knowledge of what I enabled, walking through the wasteland, seeing the results of Vault-Tec's experiments everywhere I go, meeting people who were victims of the vaults, hearing their stories, carrying their pain. I went to Vault-81 once. After it opened in 2277, I traded some supplies for medicine. I walked through those clean corridors and saw those healthy people, and I wanted to tell them. I wanted to grab them by the shoulders and scream the truth. Your vault was supposed to kill you. You were supposed to be infected and observed and incinerated. You only survived because one woman was brave enough to sabotage the plan. But I did not say anything. I traded my supplies, took my medicine, and left. Because what good would it do? They were happy. They were safe. Telling them the truth would only take that away. 10 years later, Bobby DeLuca found that door. Austin Engel got bitten. The truth came out anyway. It always does. I heard about it through travelers. The story spread through the Commonwealth. A secret wing in Vault-81. A robot waiting for 2 centuries. A universal cure that only had 1 dose left. A choice between a child's life and your own. People talked about it in settlements, in bars, around campfires. They debated what they would have done. Save the kid or save yourself. Be a hero or be a survivor. Some people said they would obviously save the kid. Only a monster would let a child die. Others said survival is survival, and you cannot help anyone if you are dead. Nobody is wrong. That is the worst part. There is no right answer. The sole survivor was put in an impossible situation created by Vault-Tec's experiment, and whatever choice they made, someone suffered for it. If they saved Austin, they walked away weaker, permanently damaged, every fight harder, every injury more dangerous. For the rest of their life, they would feel that infection in their blood, reducing their strength, reminding them of what they gave up. If they saved themselves, they walked away with a dead child on their conscience, Austin's face in their nightmares, the hatred of Vault 81's residents following them, knowing they chose their own life over an innocent kid's life. Both choices leave scars, physical or psychological, but scars either way, and Vault-Tec created that choice. Vault-Tec engineered those diseases. Vault-Tec built those mole rat breeding cages. Vault-Tec wrote the protocols. Vault-Tec hired the scientists and sealed them in and let them work for decades. Every piece of suffering in Vault 81 traces back to a company that saw human beings as resources to exploit. A company that built 122 vaults across America and turned most of them into torture chambers disguised as shelters. A company that promised safety and delivered experiments. Vault 81 was supposed to be one of the worst. Generations of infection, decades of observation, incineration if things went wrong, but it became one of the few success stories because one person refused to follow orders. Molerat saved Vault 81 by destroying the experiment, by sabotaging the nozzles, by sealing the scientists away, by making the hard choice that let innocent people live normal lives. But she could not save the scientists. She could not save Curie from 80 years of isolation. She could not save Austin from getting bitten 210 years later. She could not save the sole survivor from having to make an impossible choice. She did what she could with what she had. That is all any of us can do. I think about that a lot. When I'm walking through the wasteland, when I see the ruins of the old world, when I meet people who are trying to survive in a world that wants them dead. We all do what we can with what we have. We make the best choices we can with incomplete information and impossible circumstances. Molerat made her choice. The scientists made theirs. The sole survivor made theirs. Austin had no choice at all. He was just a kid who found a door and got bitten by something that should not exist. And me? I made my choice long before the bombs fell. I stayed quiet. I filed the paperwork. I enabled the machine that built Vault 81 and all the other vaults. I knew what was happening and I did nothing. I cannot undo that. I cannot take back those years of complicity, but I can do this. I can tell the stories. I can make sure people know what Vault-Tec really was. I can make sure the victims are remembered. Collins, Flint, Burrow, 3 scientists who died in the dark. Molerat, an overseer who saved hundreds by sacrificing 3. Curie, a robot who waited 80 years for orders that never came. Austin, a kid who just wanted to explore. The sole survivor, someone forced to choose between 2 kinds of suffering. The residents of Vault 81, people who lived in ignorance of how close they came to being experimental subjects. All of them were victims of Vault-Tec. All of them were caught in a machine designed to grind up human lives for data. Vault 81 still stands. The residents still live there. They still trade with the Commonwealth. They still raise their children and tend their crops and fix their machinery. Life goes on, but that sealed door in the reactor room is still there. On the other side are the graves of 3 scientists, empty laboratories, dead mole rats, the evidence of what almost happened. Sometimes I wonder if future generations will find it again. If some curious kid like Austin will open that door and discover the truth. If the story will have to be told again and again because we never learn. Because we keep building vaults and running experiments and sacrificing people in the name of progress. Or maybe they will leave it sealed. Maybe they will let the past stay buried. Maybe they will choose to move forward without looking back at the darkness they escaped. I do not know which is better. Remembering hurts, but forgetting means it could happen again. So I tell the stories. I walk the wasteland, and I find people who will listen, and I tell them what Vault-Tec really was, what the vaults really were, what was done to innocent people who just wanted to survive. This is my confession. This is my warning. This is the truth about Vault 81. It was supposed to be a plague pit, a laboratory for human experimentation, a place where people would be infected and observed until they developed antibodies or died trying. And if things went wrong, everyone would be incinerated to prevent contamination. Instead, it became a home, a sanctuary, a functioning community, because one person said no. One person sabotaged the plan. One person made the hard choice, but that choice had a cost. 3 lives sealed away, decades of isolation, a cure that expired before it could help anyone beyond one person, a kid who got bitten, a survivor who had to choose. Every choice has a cost. Every survival has a price. The wasteland taught me that. Vault 81 taught me that. The look on people's faces when they hear these stories teaches me that every single day. We are all just trying to survive in a world built by people who did not care if we lived or died. We make compromises, we make mistakes, we make choices that haunt us, but we keep going. We keep telling stories, we keep warning people about the darkness, so maybe they can avoid it. That is all I have. That is all any of us have, the truth and the telling of it. Vault 81 stands. The residents live. The secret wing is sealed, and somewhere in the Commonwealth, there is a robot with a human body exploring the world and continuing her research, never fully understanding that the work she dedicated her existence to was built on human suffering. The wasteland does not do happy endings. It does not do clean resolutions. It just does survival. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one story at a time. This was the story of Vault 81, the secrets, the operations, the truth behind the clean corridors and functioning systems. Remember it, learn from it, and if you ever find yourself facing an impossible choice, remember that you are not alone. Someone else has stood where you are standing. Someone else has carried that weight. We all carry the weight together. That is how we survive. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for caring enough to hear about people who died centuries ago in a place most people will never see. Their story mattered. Your attention made it matter. Stay safe out there in the wasteland. Watch for hidden doors. Question the vaults. Remember the victims. And if you see a clean, functioning vault with happy people inside, remember that someone probably bled to make that possible. Someone probably made a choice that haunts them still. The wasteland remembers. I remember. And now you remember too. That is enough. That has to be enough.